Creature Season 2, Episode 8, Holes. Now this episode I thought was pretty good. We actually got 4 stories this episode instead of 3 like we did last time. I think all of them were pretty good. Of course, definitely different levels as far as importance to the story. So I'm going to start with the least important stories with Tulip and Jesse, and then I'll go on to Cassidy and Eugene because I felt they had the most important stories. But Jesse's story starts off. He's following the one lead that he has with this CD, and he takes it to, I think they're called like the Disc Dorks or Dork Docs, something like that. And they do, he basically takes it to them to do exactly what they did in the show, which was, can you enhance it like they do in the movies and TV shows, which is exactly what they do because you cannot do that in real life. And so they're like, yeah, we zoomed it and we digitally enhanced it and all that stuff, which enhancing something doesn't actually make it like focus. That's not really what that does. But of course they find out that there are no numbers, no serial numbers on the gun. It was, they're scrubbed off. And so I love that scene because the guys thought Jesse was coming in to make sure that his tracks were covered, and they're trying to like high five and was like, yeah, we found absolutely nothing. And he's like, but I wanted to find it to figure out who owned the gun. And they're like, don't we know who owned the gun? It's like, no, it wasn't me. Like, why would I come here? So I love that whole scene where they thought they were helping him by finding nothing on the gun because they assumed that he was trying to cover his own tracks, which really didn't make any sense. Even if that was what he was trying to do, I'm sure there are a million better ways to do it than to just flat out go to 2 people and say, hey, can you help me find out whether or not someone can tell if I'm, I own the gun that killed somebody? Much better ways to do that. So of course, he sees there's like a small reflection in the slate, and so they digitally, they do like they do in the TV shows, they digitally enhance it and increase the reflection and sharpen it and everything so that you can see a coffee pot. Once again, you cannot do that stuff. And so, that's like the one lead that he had. Ultimately, everything just kind of failed for him, which really sucked. That was like the one thing that he had the whole episode. Like, this is the one lead I got. The idea, came from Cassidy. And that was all Jesse had. And, he goes there. He has a small moment where he thinks he's getting a little bit closer to Tulip because she says, can I go with you to, as he's kind of doing his little mission. And ultimately, she just went to, get her fridge, and then she left. And it's just like, I thought you wanted to actually like talk to me and stuff. And so he was kind of just left alone. It was kind of sad when she was just like, oh yeah, you don't need me for that, do you? And it's like, dang, I thought we were getting somewhere. So he kind of had a crappy episode a little bit. And when they destroy the DVD, we find out that it says Grail Industries on it. And they also had a spot, I think it was the first time they called Jesse up, like right before they called him up. On the TVs, it was a commercial for Grail Industries. So it was really weird that this crazy company actually has real life commercials. And the commercial itself was super weird because it was something like, because they had actual dialogue and I can't remember exactly how it was, but it was something like, we're working on your future now so we can get to our future later, or something like that. And the end of the commercial is like a nuclear explosion. It was like, this is the ultimate future or something, and it was a nuclear explosion. I was like, that's a really odd commercial to have playing where they're talking about, the end of the world. But I thought that was interesting. So maybe that'll come up again because they've, that's how they found, what is his name? It was Fior or Bior? I can't remember now. But the angel, that's how they found him, was because of the commercial. And that's how they, of course, found out about their town. So maybe that'll come back into play. Like they randomly see the commercial and it's like, that's a weird commercial to have playing. So maybe that'll come into play later. But I thought that was interesting that Grail Industries actually does have like legitimate commercials. So that was like a small little thing. But Jesse's story, ultimately, he had a lead, and then he got nothing from it, and he missed, like, the one lead he could have had, which, was the etching of the actual name, which is kind of stupid, that they would put that on there. But, that was, like, the one lead he had, and ultimately everything fell apart. And then Tulip's story, as things start to get more and more important, she's going around still dealing with the fact that she almost died, and she starts to fill in all the holes and everything after she gets the refrigerator. She's filling in all the holes for the different apartments, and that's when she comes across the 2 people working for the Grail that are spying on them. And we find out that, in the middle of all this crazy chaos, probably during sometime with the Santa Killers, they were able to actually put cameras in their apartment, so they know everything about them. I'm assuming, know Cassidy's a vampire and all that extra stuff. So, they have quite a bit of intel on them, and then Tulip going to that final apartment, she ends up talking with the woman who's there, and it allows for them to have like this fake relationship sort of bloom where it's like, yeah, maybe we could hang out, maybe we could go to like this Hurt Locker place or whatever. And I was like, okay, that's an easy in for them because they already have the intel on them with the cameras and everything, and that's just another way to get close to the whole trio. Although Jesse's the most important, so it's a simple way for them to do it. They could she could hang out with Tulip. They hang out enough, and it's like, all right, we're going to this location. You guys come here. They kidnap Tulip, and it's like, hey Jesse, give up your powers or give up yourself, and then Tulip can live. So she might end up going through the same situation again, and I'm curious how that could play out. I feel like that's probably where it's headed, just so with everything she's dealing with, she'll have to do it again, that she could actually die. And I'm curious how that would affect her, because this is, a different situation. Those are humans. It would just be a bunch, and they'd be, well organized, and they would understand what's going on, supernatural wise. But they're still human, so I feel like it would be a different sort of situation where she could still have more control. So I am curious if that's how they actually are going to do it. That's, of course, my theory is that ultimately she'll get kidnapped again, but it won't be the same sort of powerless situation like the Saint of Killers, who's like, invincible. It's not that same sort of thing. So I feel like that's where it might be headed, and eventually she'll have gotten over the Saint of Killers, which she's still dealing with that now. But by the time it happens with the Grail, I think she'll be over the Saint of Killers, and it's like, I made it through that. You guys are just a bunch of jackasses, and you're just human. So I feel like that might be how that ultimately ends up playing out, where she won't be affected in any way when it comes to the Grail. But they have a bit of an end with her, and so that's kind of her story, where it's like, her story for this episode is her still dealing with what happened with the Saint of Killers, and then them kind of introducing the fact that she might have, a bit more importance as far as the Grail integrating itself into the trio. So I feel like that's where her storyline's headed, which I'm excited to see. Like I said, I don't know for sure, but my theory is that by the time things start to really happen with the Grail and Air Star shows up and everything, I think she'll be over the stuff that happened with the Saint of Killers. Depending on whether or not he ends up coming back soon, I think they might deal with the Grail and then he comes back after them. But just depending on how that plays out, I think she'll be over that, and then it's like, these are just a bunch of humans. I can deal with that because she's done it before. So that's my theory on that. But I thought her story was pretty good. It's leading to something more important down the line. So it's just like the beginning of like the next step. So then we move on to Cassidy and Eugene. And Cassidy, sticking with like Earth, I guess, before we go to Eugene, he had a really good storyline. Like, I really liked his. It was kind of building up for episodes where, his son's dying, and this was the final one, where it's like, he needs to figure out what he's going to do. Is he going to turn his son into a vampire, or is he going to let him die? Just live out his normal human life, and then be gone. And I love the way it played out. Like, it starts off in, I think it was 1946, where he first sees him, and he's singing to him and stuff. And I love what they do in this scene because, excuse me, they have a nurse there, and so she's reading the magazine and she kind of looks up and she smiles because it's like, oh, it's his father checking on his son. And so he's talking, and he's singing, and he's talking to him. He's like, "I'll be the best dad you've ever known." And then he pulls out the flask and he drinks from it. And then she kind of gets a different look on her face, like, "Oh, he's just one of those type of guys." It's the 1940s. Not everybody was great. So she kind of looks at him like, "Oh, he's just another crappy father who's going to screw up." And that's exactly what happened, just in a crazier way, because of course he was a vampire. So it's very interesting him going through this story, and he wanted to be a good father, and we don't really get to see what happens in between. I would love if they did that in the next episode. I'm still watching it online, so I don't know what happens next. But I would love it if the next episode kind of focused on, what happened in between that flashback and today, because it's like he wanted to be there as a father, and for whatever reason he wasn't. Somehow his son grew up speaking French. Like, there's so many questions in there. It's like, what was going on there? Why wasn't he around, to be with his son? Like if his son's speaking French, I doubt he just grew up in New Orleans only speaking French, so I'm sure he was actually somewhere in France. That's just a theory. I could totally be wrong, but if you're living in the States, even if you live in New Orleans, odds are you speak both French and English, because it's common there to speak both. So it's just, a lot of questions there. So it's like, all right, how ultimately did this end up failing for him? How did he fail as a father to this person? So it was just interesting, and he's going through it. He has to decide, like, do I let my son die? He even calls his brother Seamus. who does know that he's a vampire. We don't get any clues as to whether or not Seamus himself is a vampire, but he says just let him die. Like, don't bite him, just, let him live his life, let him go. And I assume that that's what Cassidy decided to do. Like, he goes in at the very end, and he's singing the same song that he sung in the beginning of the episode when he was a baby. And I assume that that was because he was not going to bite him. I wasn't sure, but then it ended, because I thought for a second they were going to show his teeth, and then it would end and be like, okay, he bit his son to save him. But it just ended with him singing, and there was no showing of his fangs or anything. I was like, I'm assuming he's doing that to be like, it's literally the end, and I missed everything in between. I was there for the beginning, and I'm here for the end, and that's all I can do as a father. And so he's trying to do the best that he can, but he's not gonna bite his son and have him live forever, which, he touches on why it's not great, and it's the normal vampire issue. Like, you have the power, you have immortality, but everybody dies. You live forever, everybody dies around you. You can't go to the beach. That was like one of his big things. It was like, I used to love going to the beach. I can't even be out, in sunlight unless I'm like, got an umbrella or I got gloves and I'm wrapped up like crazy. I cannot be, outside. So, very interesting. And, he has that talk with Tulip where it's like, it's cool, some of the, the advantages, but the disadvantages can really hurt you, in the long run. Like, you living forever can suck, so it was just very interesting, and I love the way, they talk about it. It's the normal issue of being a vampire. Everyone around you, dies off while you live forever. But it was just interesting, and watching him kind of go through that, I was definitely entertained by it, because it was just constantly building up, like, what is he going to decide? And this was it. This is like that final moment. So, we'll see what happens in the next episode, if his son officially dies, or if he does end up actually turning him. That would be surprising to me, but I feel like he's gonna let him go. But I thought that was a really good story. And then of course we have Eugene's story, which was definitely awesome. I really loved his story in this episode, where we get to see passage of time. He's like, he's working out like he's been in the prison yard, so he's like buffing everything. He has Tracy tattooed on his back, and he's trying to do nice stuff really on the down low so he doesn't get tossed in the hole. Like, he's doing a bunch of random nice little things away from the camera and everything, and eventually it is discovered that the reason that everything kind of screwed up and everyone's thrown into like the little crappy hell rec room is because there's too many people in that specific quadrant of hell, and they don't know who it is, and that's why the power was like overloaded, because there's someone who didn't belong there. The thing that I thought was really weird is that it's hell, and they know that someone doesn't belong, but they don't have like a marker for like, this is exactly when this person showed up. That seemed really odd to me that they wouldn't have a marker for that, but apparently they don't. So they don't know who doesn't belong in hell, and Hitler realizes, of course, it's Eugene, because he's about to raise his hand, but he stops. So he trips the lady to get Eugene tossed in the hole so that he can go through this crazy, twisted version of his worst moment ever, where it's like they give you like exactly what you wanted, because he kisses Tracy, and it's like, you like me too, and they sing and everything, and then Jesse comes along and they start making out, and he flips, like he loses it, and I guess ultimately he kills himself, and that's what happened over and over again. Excuse me, I have a cold. I'm doing way better. This is actually like the second time I've done this, because I tried to do it last night and I could not get through it, but I'm doing much better, so sorry about the cough, but it's the tail end of a cold right now. But he goes through like this crazy, dream sequence where he gets what he wants a little bit, and then it just tears him back down. There's like that happiest moment ever, and then it's just taken right away, and he ends up, like I said, I guess killing himself over and over again because he can't handle it. So once he ends up back in the rec room, Hitler's talking to him like, hey, I had to get you tossed in there so you knew what it was like, because once they find out it's you that doesn't belong, it's not like they'll just let you go. It's hell. They're going to just toss you in the hole forever, for all eternity. So Hitler says he's going to try to help him escape. I would assume that Hitler's playing the super long con. Like, the whole thing's been like, oh, Hitler is calm down. He even mentions in this episode, like, I used to have the run of the place, and then, things eventually just changed. So, I don't know, it's hard to say. Like, with Hitler trying to help Eugene, is he really going to be good, or is he going to go back to being Hitler? Because I would assume Hitler's going to try to escape too. If he can help Eugene escape, why not escape too? So, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But that was definitely interesting because it's Eugene in hell when he doesn't belong. So I've been waiting on that for a minute there, but I'm looking forward to it. I love the way they ended the episode where everybody sleep, and so you see like these red lights and stuff above them. Excuse me. And it's like, oh, we've never noticed that before. It's just the rec room. So their conversation ends and the camera flips, and we see that they're on like this weird bottom level in the rec room of hell, and then there's like just this giant tunnel straight above them, and they're like in the center looking straight up, and there's just a bunch of different levels of hell. So very interesting, but you know, sorry. Holy crap! I thought I could make it through this whole thing without coughing, but we see what happens, at the end there with the visuals. And sorry about that. I had to cut it. I was coughing way too hard, so I got myself some orange juice when my throat gets a little too dry. So it should be good for like the last minute of this video. But basically the ending visuals I thought were pretty cool for Eugene, where we see the tunnel and everything like that. So we don't really know exactly how that's going to play out, but I'm super curious. Are they going to get zapped out? Because we've seen that work with the Saint Killers, where the angels came along. So I would love to know how they're ultimately going to escape, because we've only seen like 5 really different locations in hell so far. It's like the individual rooms, the whole room. I'm pretty sure we saw like the office of the woman when Eugene like first showed up, and we like really got to see hell, and then the rec room, and I guess technically the 5th place would be seeing the whole tunnel. But there's just a lot of questions like how are they supposed to get out of there? So looking forward to that. But ultimately, I could tell I was about to start coughing. Ultimately, I think it was a good episode. Definitely looking forward to Eugene's escape. Unfortunately, I'm sure it's not going to be for like another couple of episodes, so that sucks. But I'm super excited for him to escape. But ultimately, I think this is a good episode. In general, I like the 4 stories. Of course, we'd love to know what you guys thought about it. Please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. And I would love to know how you guys think Eugene is actually going to end up escaping. Like, how is he going to get out? Who's going to escape with him? Who's going to help him escape? Because I think, honestly, it'll be more than just Hitler. I think other people will find out. It's like, hey, I want to escape too, so we all work together, and then we get the heck out of here. Jeez. I hate having a cold so bad. It's the worst thing. But we'd love to know your theories on how they're going to escape, and ultimately what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below. Let me know. Thanks for suffering through my coughs, and thanks for watching in general.